Happy Sunday evening, everybody, and welcome to the Nana Boss Continuum. And tonight we have an amazing guest. But before I get there and we bring him up, I just want to say hi to everybody who's here. Tonight it's a double header for me today, guys. I had a show earlier and now I'm back again. I had just enough time to get a little bite to eat in between, so it works out. So, hi, Cindy. I'm so glad you're here. Um, Good to have you. Hey there, Gary. Hey, Laura. It says you are going to have your hands busy, but you're here. So, thank you for being here. Hey there, Brian. How are you? I'm so glad to see you. Um, Brian, I love hearing your stories. I got to have you back soon. And hey there, Lenny. So good that you're here. And hey there, James. How are ya? And Matt, my son, Mr. Supernatural Spectrum, who helped me out of a tight spot just a little while ago. If you guys missed that interview, definitely go check it out. It was amazing. And Matt did put out a video today with some of his audio evidence that, Doug Highcheck actually vetted for him. And so he put that video out today. So definitely go and check that out. It was really, really good. It's good evidence. It's worth listen. It's worth a good listen. There you thank you, Gary, for putting his channel up there for me. I appreciate that. And I don't gotta plug it again. That's okay. I don't mind plugging it. You're my kid. But thank you. I just want to say really quickly, thank you guys to all of my supporters who are members of my channel. Speaking of which, this gentleman that I'm bringing on tonight is also one of the members to my channel and is an amazing researcher. And I had the pleasure of meeting him, Mr. Larry Newman. Got to meet him in Missouri. Hey there, Larry.
Hello to everybody.
I am so excited that you're here tonight. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I knew that I would obviously be, having opportunities to meet all of these amazing people on the camp out. And I was it was like everybody that was there was just like we just were like family. All of a sudden we were just like all of us were family. It just felt so good to just be with like-minded people. And you were one of them. You were so sweet.
Thank you. Every expedition I go on, we meet a lot of really good people, and it's some of the best people that I know are on those. So yes, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So how did you get started in this? Like what was your very first encounter? Like how did that happen for you?
I kind of backed into this back in around 69 or 70. My mom had a beauty shop in the house, and she always kept a lot of Reader's Digests around. And I read a story about two guys in California that had been out looking and took video of Bigfoot in California, and that kind of piqued my interest. And then we rock along here to the mid 2000s when the internet came along, and I'm searching and I come across Bigfoot again. And so I'm looking at that, come across a site called BFRO, and to my surprise, there were expeditions in Missouri. So I signed up for one in 2009, and not knowing anything. And I went to this expedition hosted by Ron Bowles, and we I met a lot of investigators from all across the country and learned a lot. Um, they found out that I had just retired as a sheriff's detective, and that I was a certified crime scene investigator. And so Ron immediately asked me if I would be an investigator. And so that was up my alley of talking to people, and which I like to do, interviewing people. And so that was great. Well, it wasn't long before, and I'm from Missouri, so until you show me, I don't believe anything,
Yeah.
and my mental uh, st- stratagem as a police officer and a detective is that I don't believe anything until I've got the evidence.
Right.
So it wasn't long in talking to people, and I began to figure out that there's maybe something going on here. And then we went on an investigation. There's a little town called Southwest City, Missouri, and it sits right on the corner of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. And three gentlemen had a sighting down there, so we went and interviewed them, and I found them to be very credible. Two out of the three. The third one was he didn't want to talk to us, didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want anybody knowing. Your
Mhm,
typical I don't want anybody laughing at me kind of guy.
right.
Um, but we went back after the interviews. We went back to the location and did some looking around and investigating, and come across a trackway down by the creek. Uh, Very plain human type foot, five toes, but it was 18 inches long and 6 inches wide. So it tied in and verified what those guys had been telling us. So over the years that I've talked to more people and followed up on investigations, I was convinced. My first actual sighting was 2017, I think, when me and another investigator from uh, Texas, uh, Rick Taylor,
Oh, yeah.
we were down on. We drove to a location. We saw it on the map. We drove down there. We'd not been there before. Very remote. I think the closest house was 2 miles away. So we drove down there 9:30 at night in late October. It's close to freezing. So we get down there, and Rick starts with his thermal and identifies a couple of individuals, and I see him through the thermal, and he takes the video uh, that he's got, and I think he has shared that. But we've got one individual coming out across the creek from us up on a ledge, walked out there, full body thermal, not wearing clothes. And like I said, it's 10:30 or 9:30 at night,
Mm,
40 degrees, and we are way, way, way away from anybody. Nobody knew we were going. Rick and I and three other gentlemen all went there, and like I said, it was a spur of the moment spot on the map, so there was no possibility for a hoax situation. Um, but we watched them for about an hour and a half, um, and the one individual would walk out to the ledge and then turn around and walk back into the trees, and then come back out on the ledge again and stand there. And at one point, we saw it swing its arm, and immediately after, heard a great big rock hit the creek down below. So uh, we definitely had activity there. The next day, when I went back, uh, we searched and looked for ways to get to that location, and it was so steep and so rough, there was no way for a person to get up to it. If
yeah.
you know what I mean. And so um, that was my first sighting and experience there, and we got that on video, and so it's been just full bore from then till now. So that was my first actual physical sighting.
Wow. So you being, I mean, you being an investigator and I mean a crime scene investigator. So it's not like I mean, you've got special training in order to collect evidence and
Correct.
you know all about the chain of custody and all of
Yes.
these really important details that some of us don't even think about, right? So you've got that in your wheelhouse already. So
Yes.
when you're going out and you're investigating these things, I mean, are you able to really kind of like find things that maybe most of us wouldn't even know what to even kind of look for?
Sure. Yeah. There's details, and of course I grew up. um, on the farm, and I was hunting and fishing and trapping as a kid, and I'm outdoors all the time and know how to track, and I know how to look for things that are out of place. And so, yes, there have been times when we've been out in a location just on the spur of the moment, went somewhere and noticed something out of place, and it turned out to be, well, we found a good trackway one day uh, in December. All the leaves are on the ground, and I just we noticed that there was Ron Bowles and I noticed that there were leaves disturbed, and when you stood back and looked at it from a distance, it looked like uh, footprints walking in the leaves. Well, the wind had been blowing that morning, and this is some of the investigative techniques, but um, the wind had been blowing that morning, and the leaves had been on the ground for a while. So if this had happened even 4 or 5 hours before we found them, uh, the leaves would have been settled back down, and you wouldn't know it was there. But anyway, that we again found a trackway on a kind of a gravelly ridge. Um, and Ron Bowles, he's 300 pounds, and he couldn't make a dent in the
Mhm.
ground, but these footprints had sunk in about a half an inch to an inch into the ground. So whatever it was weighed probably 600 pounds plus.
Wow.
Yeah. So full
Yeah,
footprint with
Ron's a
toes
big
and
guy.
everything. Yeah, Ron's a big guy.
Ron's a very big guy. Yeah.
Right. But this was a place that nobody knew we were going to. Nobody had any idea we were there. It's a wilderness area, and it was just we just happened to walk up to the correct ridge and find them. So when things like that happen in investigations, you look for all possibilities of a hoax, and when there are none, then you have to determine that that actually happened.
Hmm.
So, over the years, in my way of thinking, footprints don't happen out of thin air. If nothing passes that way, there are no footprints. So when you
Right.
find a footprint, something physical had to be there.
Yeah.
So in years of finding that kind of evidence, then yeah, um, that pretty much convinced me.
So have you ever had a dangerous encounter, or something where you were just kind of like, wow, we're in some trouble here, or like, have you ever had a scary encounter?
Um, no, I've not had scary encounters. I've had logs thrown at me, from a group of us, uh, on several occasions. Uh, we've had the infamous wood knock that everybody talks about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that happened, and it was pretty close. It was close enough to really get you on your toes. But as
Oh,
far as having an encounter where I felt threatened, no, I have not.
wow. Have you ever found evidence of anything else other than Bigfoot? You ever seen any other like weird? I don't know. I guess what I should just come out and say it, like, because Dogman. Have you seen any evidence of Dogman out there? I mean, you spend a lot of time out there, so any evidence to that?
I My opinion of the dog man is that we're talking about a Bigfoot that lives in a specific area of the country,
Hmm.
and it probably is a physical variation. Um, they talk about in Kentucky, there's the Kentucky Bigfoots. They call them pumpkin heads because they're odd shape of head.
Hmm.
So I think it could possibly be an odd physical trait in
Hmm.
a specific area, hereditary, passed down that uh, appears as though it's got a jutted jaw.
Gotcha.
But that my speculation is that we're talking about a variety of Bigfoot.
Gotcha. Brian Barber wants to know, have you ever caught people hoaxing? I mean, have you been able to do that?
Of course, the way I get my leads is that somebody will put a report on, and it's a private website that these reports get posted on. As investigators, we go in and look at these reports, and then we pick up the phone and call people or reach out to them. Uh, I've had I've had several obvious hoaxes. When I got people on the phone, it was, I mean, within 2 minutes, it's an obvious hoax
Mm-hmm.
and things. As far as a physical hoax, no, I've not run into that. Um, I've, had people call and or talk to me and say, "Well, I saw this or saw that," and it's pretty easy for me to pierce that story and find out that it's not an accurate story.
Right. Yeah. I mean, former law enforcement. I mean, that BS meter goes off, right? It's almost like
Sure.
you know, you can kind of figure out if somebody's kind of fibbing a little bit or they're just like looking for some attention. I mean, does the BFRO run into that a lot where people are looking for attention and
There's
people?
there's and there are some. Um, I think there's currently the last count that I saw was there's about 75,000 reports
Mhm.
on their site, and I would say maybe 5 or 6% are actual hoaxes. Um,
That's pretty low.
as I had particular training in interview and interrogation techniques and how to talk to people, and I found out there's three different kinds of stories. There's the one story that is actually true. People saw, they tell you the truth. They're honest and factual in what they tell you. Then there's the obvious hoaxer. Then there are those who think they saw something and they convinced themselves that they saw something and they're not really lying, but they're it's just not an actual happening,
Mhm.
I guess I should say.
Mhm.
So I finally come to the conclusion there's three different types of reports.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
cuz
I would say 75% of the reports that get posted are probably pretty accurate.
yeah. I mean, cuz I know that I've like kind of had that same thing with myself. Like I second guess myself, like I
Right.
try to always before I go and say I saw this or I saw that, it's like I'm always trying to put it like, go through that like mental Rolodex. Like,
Sure.
could it have been this? Could it have been that? Could it have been this? It's kind of like once I've gone through all of that, then I'm like, okay, so it didn't fit into any of those boxes. So now what's my next step, right? So I think a lot of people kind of try. I think a lot of people don't. Not. I mean, not on purpose, but I think a lot of people just kind of jump from this to the fantastical, which is everybody. We need to not do that. We need to kind of like try really hard to be skeptical and have that mindset first.
Right. Second guessing yourself is not an unhealthy thing. But you need to be careful as to not
Mhm.
jump to a conclusion that something happened when it didn't. Um, but always investigate and back up and take a fresh look at it, and maybe a third person's set of eyes or ears or whatever. Um, and from law enforcement, when we're trying to arrive at the truth, we're always second guessing everything, and we're analyzing and we're testing theories, and when you've eliminated all of the uh, impossibilities, and what's left is accurate.
Mhm. Mhm. So, what kind of things do you guys, like when you guys go out? What's the one thing that you guys are really looking for? I mean, are you looking for the experience or the encounter, or are you looking for evidence? Are you looking for all of it? What do you guys really focus on when you're out there?
We're focused on learning. We're focused on learning habits, traits,
Mhm.
uh, gathering information so that we can learn more about this, um, not a phenomenon, but we're about this animal or whatever it happens to be. I had always felt like this was a descendant of the Gigantopithecus
Mhm.
um, theory. Made sense to me until I talked to John Moreland. And John Moreland has basically blown my theory apart. And I think in studying and looking into and reasoning, I think John's closely right. This is a another species of human that uh, no one really wants to acknowledge.
Mhm.
So it's easy to always be open to learning new things, but habits and what they sound like and how they move and what their diet is and how they travel and things uh, living in the woods that we don't know about. There's so much
Mhm.
to learn, and that's the intriguing and interesting part for me.
Yeah, it is for me too. Is the behavior, the you know, what is their family structure like? What are their, what are their food habits? What are their range habits? What I mean, like how, like like there's just so much that we can learn other than just. I mean, I don't know. In my mind, because I'm a knower, you know, nobody has to prove to me that they do exist. For me, that's why I feel like Shane and Randy are so important in the work and the research that they do, because I feel like they are the only ones that are literally ready to take that next step, which is contact, contact and communication and building trust so that at some point, someday, well, we're going to have that interaction. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Correct. Oh,
yeah.
I absolutely believe that. Shane and Randy are doing outstanding work.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I do believe that the question of whether they are a live creature has we've long settled that. Too many thousands of people have had face to face contacts with them. We know they're there. We know that they're real. We know that they're flesh and blood creature.
Mhm.
Now it's what more can we learn about them? And Shane and Randy's at that point of learning things. Um, I've learned a tremendous amount about them by talking to people who have had close encounters with them and who live around them.
Mhm.
The Cherokee people in Northeast Oklahoma, a lot of them live in close proximity with them, see them all the time, uh, know where they are, listen to them. We have one elderly Cherokee gentleman that watched one chasing a deer and heard him catch it. So we know um, from gathering all that information,
Mhm.
then we can learn more about their life cycle and structure and family structure. You're correct. We know, and I know that in Northeast Oklahoma, in a small area, we had two gray colored ones. One was a large, uh, 7 foot individual, and then there was another one that was about 5 foot tall, seen in the same area. So we've got some color variations happening, um,
Mhm.
and we're learning about. And so it's just a matter of the people that live there that see them all the time, talking to them, gathering that information. That's one of the better ways of doing it, also.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, those kinds of encounters, especially, the Native Americans who, they you're right, they live side by side, right? They know that they exist. They know that they're there. They've coexisted probably for thousands of years. And, who else better to kind of give us a little bit more insight as to how they operate in every aspect of their lives than to talk to people that are which unfortunately they don't. A lot of the Native Americans don't really like to talk about it, but they would be the ones to give us as much information as possible, I would think.
Well, you have to understand the Native American mentality also. Um, the Native Americans have a tremendous amount of knowledge of nature that they learn from when they're an infant, and later generations that we're familiar with have lost some of that. But when you talk to the older ones, they know so much about what's going on in nature, and they just assume that you do too, so they don't talk about
Mm-hmm.
it. It's not unusual for them, but the Native Americans in Northeast Oklahoma that I've talked to that are close to me, it's they've always been there. Their their history, they've always been there. I mean, they've been here as long as people have been here, so
Yeah.
they're not unusual. Someone made the comment I heard yesterday that, well, it's a dwindling species. I don't believe that. I think they are increasing in number. Um,
I
there's
agree.
sightings all across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Numerous people observe juveniles from almost babies up to um, 5 and 6 feet tall. Um, in some areas of the country, uh, we suspect, just from information I've gathered, is it's a nursery area. There are certain places where the females come with the little ones where they're safe, where they feel secure, where no one goes, and they can spend their time. There's good food sources, water sources, and that's where they spend a lot of time raising those little ones.
Wow. Yeah, because you don't really hear a lot of that. You hear more, I don't know. You hear about talk about juveniles, right? People, speculate that a lot of the juveniles are the ones that are the very, very curious ones, and those are the ones that we kind of see on a more, I don't want to say regular basis, but for lack of a better term, more regular. I think the sightings of young or I don't want to say this. I want to say this right. It's like those sub-adults, right? I think the
Right.
sub-adults are the ones that are super curious, and they're the ones that we generally see. And it's very rare that sorry, I guess I buffered. It's very rare for people to talk about seeing females. It's really not that common. I mean, yes, you hear stories about it, but not generally.
Well, females, especially with young ones, will hide in the most out of the way, most difficult to reach places
Mhm.
that they can for obvious reasons. Um, Over the years, I've developed a theory which makes sense to me, but by no means is is set in stone. But I think that there are family groups, one, maybe two females with juveniles. And while the juveniles are very small, the males stick around close uh, for protection. But once they get a little older and they're able to travel or move about, then I think the males take off on a walkabout, to use an
Mhm.
Australian term. And they may travel hundreds of miles and find other females, which would justify the fact that the heredity and the gene pool would stay clean like it does.
Mhm.
And then I think they come back from some of the witnesses that I've talked to. They see the big males maybe a couple of times a year. The rest of the time, they just see the females and the juveniles. So it would make sense that that has to happen for the gene pool to remain clean. I think that um, males, the young males, at some point when they reach adulthood, uh, are probably driven out or away by the big male, um, in competition, which happens in a lot of different species. So that would make sense to me. But like I said, there's no scientific backup on that. It just makes sense.
Yeah. No, that does make sense. It makes a lot of sense. James has a question. Larry, where's the craziest place you've heard of Bigfoot being at for a sighting?
Uh, there was an instance out in Kansas, and I don't even remember the name of the town, but there was an instance where there was a school outside of town, and there was a small 10-acre patch of woods behind the school.
Mhm.
And some of the kids started noticing some things, and told the parents. And one gentleman who was um, had knew about Bigfoot had went back and scouted this little 10-acre patch of woods behind the school and found numerous tracks where no other no other cover or anything else for several miles around. But um, this thing has got it there, and it's watching the kids. Uh, I've got a friend of mine who I know personally, have known for a long time, and he lives close to downtown Joplin. And there's a creek that runs through town, and there's a wooded area with a railroad track where people hike. His house sits on the edge of it, and he has had a sighting a couple of times and has heard them there at certain times of the year. There's only one or two times of the year that he hears or sees them.
Mhm.
But that's in downtown Joplin, a town of 60,000 people. So there's some crazy places, being nocturnal like they are. We have to remember most people, large majority of people, they get up in the morning, they walk out to their car and they go to work. And they come home from work, they get out of their car, they walk into the house, turn the television on, and they don't go out till the next morning.
Mhm.
And so they could have anything going on outside of their house and would have no idea about it.
Right.
That's pretty typical of what we live in now.
Yeah. So, what kind of things like that? Okay, when you guys go out, because you guys do expeditions, right?
Yes,
Um, BFRO, you guys do what, two expeditions a year, or is there more?
one or two.
One
We'll
or
have
two a year?
probably two of them in 24.
Okay. And so, what kind of things do you guys do? Are you looking for evidence, or are you going to kind of like areas there's activity, and then do you guys deploy any type of equipment that you normally use to try to get any evidence?
Typically, what an expedition consists of is you'll have a number of experienced investigators show up, and then you'll also have people there for the first time,
Hmm.
and then some maybe for the second time, but they're learning and wanting to learn. And probably the most impactful part of an expedition is being able to listen to these people who have had years of experience and
Hmm.
learning from them. Now, we
Right.
do take night excursions, and we will go out to a remote area. We'll take people with us. We'll walk and sit down. A lot of times, just sit down and listen to the woods. Um, there's sometimes we will make calls, whoops and howls, um, trying to get a response, but also teaching the people that are with us how to do those so that they can go home and do them themselves. So it's an interesting mix, but mostly it's education. But yes, we do go out at night. We take recordings. We've recorded some really good stuff at night. Excuse me. Okay, and um, but mostly it's teaching new people what to do. I give my class on collecting evidence, so they can go home and have the ability to practice and learn how to collect evidence that they may find in their area.
Yeah.
So for the most part, it's just a huge learning experience and making contacts with people that have done this for a long time.
Yeah, and I think that that's, it's such a valuable thing to especially for yourself, just for just taking you as an example. I mean, learning from someone who has that, hey there, DA, nice to see you. It's nice to have someone with that, background of evidence collecting, learning how to talk to witnesses. I mean, that's actually a really big important piece that I think a lot of us don't put a lot of thought into, unless you are, a police officer, or have had that experience. Because not a lot of us really do know how to talk to um, witnesses and what information to ask. I mean, that's actually a really valuable thing for all of us to learn. What kind of questions do we ask when we come across someone who has an encounter?
Well, anytime you do an interview with someone, um, and I'm just going to tell you what I do, and it works really well for me.
Hmm.
If I'm meeting somebody that I've talked to on the phone, it's a matter of talking to them, getting acquainted, um, making some making some connection with them to break down that invisible barrier, to get them comfortable to talking to you.
Hmm.
Um, Let me give you an example. I'm driving down the road one day in the backwoods of Southwest Missouri in the Ozarks, and I'm driving down, and this is real squatchy area, and I feel like that they're there, and I see a gentleman sitting on his porch in a little house, and so I just pull in the driveway, and in the driveway he's got a fishing boat, and so I pull in, get out, go up, and I introduce myself. I'm Larry Newman. And I said, I'm just out driving around and stopping and talking to people. And I see you got a boat. I said, you've been fishing lately. And we start talking about fishing. That's something that they're comfortable with. That's something that they're interested in. And so we talk a few minutes about fishing, and we break down that barrier, conversational barrier.
Hmm.
And then I tell him the reason I'm here. I've had reports of um, some things walking around at night on two legs covered in hair. And I wait for that reaction. And I'll get one of two reactions. I'll either get, well, no, that there's nothing around here like that. Or I'll get this narrowing of the eyes and looking at me, and they're thinking, do I actually tell this gentleman what I know?
Hmm.
And so, if you are met with a rebuff, then you change the subject to something else and continue breaking down that barrier and then come back to that subject. A lot of times you'll have people say, no, I've never heard anything like that. Don't know of anything like that. You keep talking to them, and pretty soon well, I did have this thing happen.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what it is, but this is what happened. And so you all of a sudden now you've got an encounter. And so it's a matter of talking to people and breaking down that barrier, getting them comfortable talking to you before you broach the subject.
Hmm.
And you don't broach it boldly, but you just kind of edge into it, wait for
Right.
that reaction, whether it's negative or positive, and then you back up, and pretty soon you come at it again. Uh, but if they're truthful and they don't know anything, well, nice visiting with you, and
Yeah.
have a great day. So I've come across a lot of sightings that were never reported, never told to anyone,
Hmm.
um, like that. So that's one of the key things in this is talking to people, learning how to
Going
talk to people.
Yeah, building that rapport, building that trust, meeting them on common ground, and getting them feeling comfortable so that they can open up to you. Yeah.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Actually, we had Brian Barber says that's a class I would love to take on collecting evidence. Maybe you and I, Larry, should do a show about how to collect evidence. Maybe we need to do that. Maybe you need
Well,
to
I've
come back and
thought
do
about
that.
that, and I've thought about doing that. If I tend to get very detailed about it, because the question that I have to ask the class is, okay, are you wanting just to cast a footprint hanging on your wall, or do you want to know how to do it so that if anybody ever questions it, you've got all the documentation and the
Yes.
background and everything, all the way to calling the local airport, finding out when the last rainfall was in that area, what the temperature's
Yes.
been, has it been freezing as for a footprint, find out all of the environmental aspects of it, document that, write it up, uh, how you cast it, how you did it, and
Mm-hmm.
so you can back up what you're saying. Um, so it can get detailed. We can do it as detailed, which takes a lot of time.
I'm
Um,
good. I'm good with that. Are you kidding? I geek out on this stuff, Larry. Like I had Alex Petikoff on my show, and it was like basically turned the entire show into all about drones because I geek out on drones. And
yes, yes,
I've did a show on tracking, and like, oh, that would be fabulous. Let's do that. I would love to have a show where we talk about what is evidence, how to collect the evidence. Let's talk about chain of custody. Let's talk about where to go to, like you said, to see about the weather conditions that day, like all of it. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
yes, let's do it.
yeah. It's there are ways to do that. And of course, being CSI, I have my fingerprint kit with me in case somebody gets a handprint on a window.
I love it.
We do that also. So that's a little more in detail, but uh, just as a teaser for everybody out there, when you see these TV shows where they take the brush and the fingerprint powder and they rub it on the paper or whatever, okay, that you don't do that because you've just smudged that print and smudged all that oils around. There's no way to get a print that way. So never let your brush touch the surface.
See, there's a lot for us to learn. I mean, because I have seen some really cool, people have some really interesting prints. And like you said, there's like this, I guess they have like an oily kind of a texture to their skin or a residue that they leave behind as well. So
Just
yeah,
like we do.
just like we do. We have body oils. Exactly. Yeah, we need to do this. We got to do this show, Larry. We have to do this show.
All
Absolutely.
right, we'll figure out how to get it done.
Well, you know, I
I
just,
got an idea. When you're
okay.
here in April, let's just do
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Okay. We'll do it live.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because I haven't told anybody. I think I told Shane. I only told Shane. I didn't tell anybody else, but I'll be there in April.
Okay.
So
Great.
I will be there going out on my very first BFRO expedition with Larry, with Marianne, and I don't know, the rest of the team. So yeah, I'll be doing that in April.
Yep.
But I am so excited about that. I can't wait.
Marianne's the host, and we'll be we're going to a location where we've had all kinds of things happen. So that's what you want,
Yes, that's
a
what we're
story
there
to go
for.
home with. Yeah.
I promise I'm not a crier. I don't cry and I don't run. I don't run either. That's a bad thing I know sometimes, but I don't run. I usually just kind of stand my ground.
So were you awake when this one walked out behind your tent?
Yeah.
You heard it?
Oh, heard it. I saw it. Well, see, I we how it was in the tent was we were both in cots, and Krista's head was at the back of the tent, and my head was at the front of the tent, but I was turned facing the wall of the tent. So I was still awake. I was awake the whole time. Like they were all kind of out there by the fire, and I was laying there, just kind of resting because my back was hurting me earlier in the night. Like, so I wasn't really tired, but my back was hurting. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go lay down. So I went and I laid down, and I was in there for, you know, till whenever they all came back, went to bed. And so I was awake, and I saw the shadow because I was facing the wall. So I saw a shadow, but I didn't
So
say
you
anything.
were within 6 foot of it.
Oh yeah. But I didn't say anything because I'm used to down here in Florida, that's what I do. I may see a shadow, I may hear things. I've even had things thrown at my tent. I mean, that kind of like I've had those experiences. So, but I don't do anything. I just lay there and I listen and I let it do what it does because I want to, for me, it's more about gaining the knowledge,
You don't want to scare it off.
yeah, I don't want to scare it. I want to hear what
Right.
it, for me, that's how I'm going to learn more about their behavior
Correct.
is let them do their thing. So I had already saw the shadow, and I thought Krista was asleep already because my back was to her. So I didn't know. And all of a sudden she was like, I didn't think she, like I said, I thought she was asleep, and she said my name, but I didn't respond because I thought she would, just keep quiet, but she didn't. She like hit my leg really hard. She's like, Marty, Marty. And I'm like, Crystal, shh, shh. And she's like, oh my God, like she was really, she was really freaking out. And I'm like, shh, and I'm trying to get her to calm down. I'm like, calm. So so I turned over towards her and she sat up. But when she sat up is when I saw the shadow move from my side of the tent to behind her. So she didn't know, like I saw so I saw the shadow like those two
Hmm.
different times. So when I'm seeing it and I'm just kind of like, you know, calm down. This is what we're here for. Relax. It's okay. Calm down. She was just very convinced that it was, that it was a dog man. She was like, it's a dog man. It's a gugway. And I'm like, it's a Sasquatch. Calm down. It's not going to hurt us. It's a bear. What if it's a bear? I said, if it was a bear, it would have went after your Pringles that you left outside the front door of the tent. Calm down. I'm like, it's all good. I'm like, this is what we're here for. Just calm down. Because right when I saw it too, like when I turned to, like I saw it, when she hit me on the leg and I let her, to let her know, like, I'm like, it's okay. Like, shh, quiet. When I turned over, I pulled up my phone and I looked at my phone and I saw the time. Like that was my first thought was I need to know the time. Because
Yes.
that's how I don't know. I'm a property manager, so certain things I know to do, like to
Sure.
document, right? How to document stuff. So I pull up my phone, I see it's 3:12 in the morning. I'm trying to calm her down. Finally, she calms down. After, we hear it come around. I heard it come around her side of the tent. But when it came around, we were talking low at that point, and then I said to her, I was like, I wonder if it sees Brandy in her car, because Brandy was in her car sleeping, because the rain threw us completely off that night, because Brandy it was like she had an air mattress, but she had taken the air mattress and down and put it in her car because the rain was coming, and so she opted to just stay in her car. So we even talked about it coming, going, because we heard it come all the way around our tent. And I'm like, we were like, oh, I wonder if it's looking at Brandy. But then I just said to her, I'm like, okay, it's just like, let's be quiet and just listen to what's happening. Just like, so, I mean, and there were different times, like we could hear, like I heard, the metal, something being hit on metal. I heard a zipper. I heard, I didn't hear it, but Krista said she heard a whistle kind of down towards the creek behind us. But and then I heard a frog. I mean, we both heard a frog, which is really weird, but then
Mhm.
I can't actually say it's really related because it had just rained. So I can't really say it's exactly related, but I did hear a frog. But at the like, a good 20 minutes, I mean, this was like we could hear little things happening for at least 20 minutes. And at the very, very, very end, I know this sounds really, because I don't know really how to describe it. It wasn't like I heard a big like splash, splash. It was almost like, the sound you make when you're kind of trying to avoid a big puddle in the, like you're putting your tiptoes into water where you're kind of
Mud
just kind of,
squishing between your toes.
yeah, kind of like a splat, a very small
Yeah.
splat,
Yeah.
splat. That's what I heard. I heard two of those behind our tent, like coming from that direction. And and I know this sounds really strange, and I've said this from the beginning, and I don't know if Shane was able to kind of corroborate the last part of it from my perspective, because I saw a third shadow. Like after it was like around 20 minutes, I saw a third shadow because at this point, because Krista wasn't laying down, she was like looking at me. And I saw a third shadow go the other direction, kind of like towards the corner, And
Yeah.
then I heard
Yep.
those two little splat, splat, and then that was it. It was like, I didn't hear anything else. We didn't hear anything else. And for me, that was the end of it. But I heard Randy talking to somebody. And I said to him that next morning, and I was like, we were kind of all going through the timeline, and I'm like, who were you talking to last night? Because I knew at that point Krista was in the tent, and I knew Brandy had gotten her car, and they were kind of the last ones up. And I'm like, I didn't know if there was anybody else. And that's when he kind of started putting it all together too, that he had also had part of that puzzle that happened to us. So it was a real, it was an interesting thing. It was a very interesting thing. But I mean, I've had these kinds of incidents happen to me before. And that was Krista's very first time ever anything like that happening to her. And the windows were up and closed because of the rain. So I guess for her, that was another thing that, kind of threw her off, that she
Hmm.
was very um, hysterical over because she couldn't see. I guess that was, after it was over, I told her, I was like, you got to stop listening to these dog man stories.
Well, I've had a lot of different people have different reactions. Some people are very calm, and some people are very excited, very, fight or flight. I want to get out of here.
Mhm.
But then some people just when they saw it, they just start crying, and you can't stop it. And so it's a lot of different reactions.
Yeah.
I have always said that if I were to come up on one in the woods, the first thing I would be sit down and watch it from the corner of my eye and just watch it, see what it does, and
Yeah.
look at it as long as I can, try to, not scare it off. I can say that, but when it comes time, I'm liable to just turn around and run. Oh no.
Right. We never know. Like, you never know until you're like in that situation. It's, like you really don't know. I mean, I mean, I haven't had the kind of training that law enforcement personnel gets. I've not had that kind of training, but I have had a lot of training in dealing with very like stressful situations and dangerous situations where I'm having to literally very quickly run through my options in my head.
Sure.
Okay, this,
Right.
this, 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 this. It's like boom, 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 boom. It's because I've had a lot of that training. Because when you're a property manager, okay, you're not a cop or anything, but let me tell you, you get yourself into some very scary situations because a lot of times you're first one on scene when there's domestic violence stuff. There's a lot, there's been a lot of times where I've been in a lot. I've been in danger a lot. it's happened a lot.
Sure.
And keeping
Sure.
your head calm and cool is what,
That's
but
the
it
main
takes a lot of practice.
That's the
It takes a
main
lot.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Try to think a situation through before it happens, and
Yep.
and deal with it, but it's still going to be different than what you thought about, but at
Hmm.
least you're prepared, you know,
Right.
of what's
Right.
going to happen. But yeah, going out in the woods and teaching people how to listen and how to take recordings, how to collect evidence, um, how to go back home and do their own learning about this creature and
Yeah.
uh, settle it in their mind.
Hmm.
That's in essence what we do on these investigations, and we acquire a whole bunch of new friends.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Great people go on these.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I had such a great time like hanging out with all of you guys. Like the whole thing was just amazing. And like everybody was so like welcoming and
Yes.
just like, oh, we're so glad you're here. And like I don't know, I just instantly felt a part of the family. And you guys were so like accommodating and sweet to me. And I just appreciate that so much.
That's we try to do that and make everybody feel welcome, and
Yeah.
it's a camaraderie that
Mhm.
grows, and you know it's a wonderful thing. Even if we don't see or hear anything, we'll at least come together, met new friends, and learned a lot.
Yes. Yes. Because the education part of it is really important. Like it really is. It's key because, especially if you plan on taking that information back home and utilizing it there, it's very valuable. It's really valuable.
Well, and
Yeah.
I'm sure Shane and Randy started out that way too. Just and these are special individuals that have created a desire
Mhm.
to learn as much as they can,
Yep.
and so that's that's what drives them, and they're they're wonderful guys.
They really are. They're amazing. I'm so like I feel so blessed and lucky to be able to say that they're my friends. Like, it's an amazing thing. And I said this to Shane so many times, and I've even said it on shows. Like, literally, Larry, like that morning when Shane finally when Shane start like when we all started kind of putting it all together to I was fangirling major, Larry. I was like, oh my gosh, look at Shane. Like Shane was just kicked it into another gear and just
Right?
was out there looking for the evidence to back up everything everybody was talking about and saying. And it was so amazing that he was able to do that. Like everyone had a tiny piece of the puzzle, and he was able to corroborate absolutely every single person's description of what they saw and what they heard. Actually, you know what? Let me show let me show the photo. Hang on one moment. Let me pull this photo up because this is really interesting. And for all the folks on my channel, I have not actually given my version of what happened yet. I was kind of waiting a little bit. I was waiting, to be respectful to Daniel. I knew that his article was going to be coming out and dropping this week. So I was just trying to be very respectful of, letting Shane explain everything and how it happened and the evidence that he found before I kind of put my stuff out. So, all right. So I'm going to show everybody. All right. So everybody see that?
Yes.
All right. Hang on. I'm going to see if I can wait. Let's do this. Hold on 1 second. Do that. Can everybody see that?
Hmm.
All right. So, so the yellow dot right back here in the corner. I don't know if anybody can see my mouse or not.
Yes.
Actually, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. How's that? Is that a little bit better? Hold
Yeah.
on. Okay, perfect. Much better. Okay. So where the yellow dot is actually where that is Randy's. That was Randy's tent.
Hmm.
Then the next tent to the right that you see, the blue one, that's Shane. That was Shane's tent.
Right.
And then you see a black car. That was Krista's. And then the next tent, kind of like that teal color with that red dot in front of it. That was our tent.
Hmm.
And then the next car, the black car, that was where Brandy was sleeping. And then the blue dot, that's Mary and Robert's tent.
Right.
So basically, after it was kind of all said and done, I mean, it literally kind of came behind Randy's tent where the yellow dots are, and it came into under his pop-up to actually, it was kind of going through some of the stuff on his table is what it was
Hmm.
actually doing. And then he thought it was a person, and he was kind of like, hey, can I help you? And then it left. And then right behind our tent, and it's kind of hard to see, it's kind of behind, looks like it's behind Shane's tent back there.
Hmm.
There was this big, huge, like bale of hay back there.
Right.
And so it kind of left Randy, went back into, into the woods, into the wood line. Then he kind of came out and around, and he kind of sat there right behind our and I'm going to show you guys the photo from right behind our tent. Let's see here. Oops, wrong one. Where is it? Hmm. No. Sorry, guys. Trying to find it here. Okay. All right. So I've got, whoops, this one first. Okay. So all right. Okay. So it was literally just to the right of that hay bale is where Shane found the impressions. And so that's like looking at our tent. Um,
And that's the car that Brandy was in.
no, that's Krista's
That's
car.
Krista's car. Okay.
Yep, that's Krista's car. And then this one, whoops, hold on. And whoop, I'm usually a little bit better than this. And those are the two impressions. Let me see if I can make it a little larger. Those are the two impressions. They were 14, I think 14 and 14 and a half inches. That those were right next to the hay bale. So it was kind of sitting there for a little bit.
Yep.
I think it was at that point in time, I think it was, Randy had already kind of, I mean, you can look how close it was. Like I was on this side of the tent. Like I was facing that side. So that's what I'm saying. Like I already saw the shot. Like I had already seen it before Krista even heard it. Like she heard it as it moved and came around the back of the tent.
Hmm.
So it was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna, I think Randy kind of confused it, or not confused it, but kind of like scared it a little bit, unnerved it. And then it was like, okay, let me see. I'm going to wait and I'm going to kind of hang out and I'm going to see. And then when he thought finally everybody was asleep, okay, I'm going to go check things out now, you
Yep.
know?
Curiosity. Curiosity. They're very,
Yes.
very curious.
Yes.
And I've heard numerous stories of people who've had their ice chest, the coolers, outside their tent, had things taken, the lid lifted, something
Hmm.
taken out of there, and the lid dropped. So I mean, there's all kinds of that stuff.
Yeah.
All kinds of stories like that.
Yeah. And, I was kind of like, because like, I knew there had to be, because of the storm, I knew there had to be some sort of evidence in the morning. I knew there had to be
Right.
something. There was no, in my mind, I kept thinking, there's got to be something in the morning around somewhere with all that rain. I think there was a few people that were kind of like up before me, but when I got up before Krista and Brandy. And when I got up, my first thing was, as I went around to the back, and I saw that the grass was kind of laid down in a few areas, kind of like something had walked through there. Now I knew that Shane had looked there the night before. Um, I knew that because there was a couple of times on Saturday night. It was already dark and it hadn't rained yet, but I know. Okay, so I know this sounds so weird. Okay, so I had went over to the cooler, and everybody was kind of waiting for dinner to get done. And I walked over to the cooler, but I had my hair like was down like this, and I bent down to the cooler, and I went to open up the cooler, got my drink out, closed the cooler, and as I was closing the lid, I didn't even tell Shane about this because it really wasn't evidence of anything. But as I did that, something come flying this way, and like it made my hair move like this, like something was like that. And I'm literally looking around and I'm looking around and I'm looking around, and I didn't see, I couldn't find anything. It was just getting dark, and I'm like, God, that was weird. I even said something to Krista and Brandy when I went back to sit down. I'm like, that was really weird. And then Brandy was like, "Oh yeah, it's probably my ghost that goes everywhere with me, because she has like this ghost thing or attachment or something." She says that she's got, so I don't know. And she's like, "Ah, it's probably it. That's what it was." I'm like, and I just kind of blew it off. I was it. I never really thought about it again. And then a little bit later, after the rain, I had went up to the tent, and it sounded like somebody was behind there. And I'm looking. And at one point, we even had Shane come and take a look. We're like, sounds like there's something behind her tent. So Shane did kind of come up and go back there, but he was right behind the tent, not in that whole corner back there.
Yeah.
So when I
Yeah.
so when I got up that morning, I'm looking, and that's where I was looking, not where Shane had been or any of us had been, but in that corner. And I'm like, okay, this is definitely something's been back there. Like I just knew it. I was like, yeah, there's evidence for sure.
It and I tell people it's important to notice the little things, be aware of your surroundings,
Yeah.
obviously, but take notice of the little things and document them. Just take your little notebook and document this happened,
Mhm.
that happened, and later on it might fit into the puzzle.
Yeah.
So you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. You just never know what's going to, like I said, everybody in that whole fence line. I mean, because it went like all the way down, starting at where Randy was, all the way down the entire perimeter of every single tent. There was, Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there were 10 or 11 people This encounter was this whole encounter. Everybody saw something, heard something. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the special times when something like that happens. You can't wish it to happen. You can't
Hmm.
make it up, but when it happens, it's amazing.
It is.
I and
It
it
is.
and it may have been drawn in by the fantastic cooks that we had down there.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding? Cindy and Martha were phenomenal. I mean, they were constantly like feeding us, making sure we had coffee. I mean, you name it. Like those ladies, they took care of us.
Yep, they do.
Yeah, they were amazing. So, Larry, thank you so much for being here
You're
tonight. I
so
really
welcome
appreciate
anytime.
it. And we got to definitely, we're going to do this. We're going to do a show on evidence collection.
Okay. Yeah. It would be hard to
Absolutely.
do it in this venue, but if you can be there, we'll record it live and then you can produce it there. That way.
Okay. That
So
sounds
more
perfect.
than happy to do that.
All right. Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you
Thank
very
you.
much. Appreciate being here and all your work that you do.
Thank you. I'll see you in April for sure.
Okay. All right. We'll be there.
All right.
All
All
right.
right. Have a good night.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye. Well, guys, that was another amazing episode. And thank you guys for all being here so much. And before I let everybody go, I do have to give a big shout out again. Cindy and Martha made me my very own scent of soap. It's the Nonabos scent. Oh my gosh, it's delicious. If anybody wants some amazing soap and y'all are into like all natural type stuff, let me know. I will get you guys hooked up with the ladies and they'll hook you up. I do want to just kind of tell you guys, I do have a show that is scheduled for next Sunday night. I'm not 100%. I will be in the field the entire weekend. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to make it home in time to do a Sunday night show. I am going to try, but I'm still, on the fence of whether I'll be able to make it home in time for that and to, of course, get showered and look presentable. So I don't know, but I will try. I will let you guys know in the community tab for sure whether that's going to happen. And I want to also remind everybody, go over, check out Matt's channel, Supernatural Spectrum. He just put out a piece of evidence that he's been hanging on to for 2 years, some audio evidence backed up and vetted by Doug Hychak and David Ellis of the Olympic Project. Definitely go check it out. It's worth a listen. He's going to be dropping some other evidence that, both of us, we've kind of been hanging on to for years, and he's starting to drop it. He wants to get it out there. He wants this evidence out. So please go subscribe to his channel so that you guys can definitely so you don't miss anything. And let's see. Gary says, hey, you looked fine at the conference after being in the field. Gary, that was just one night. This is going to be for like 3 nights. So I'm going to be pretty, yeah. I don't know. 3 days is different than just an overnight. Thank you, Gary, for putting Matt's link in there. Again, what else? I think that's it, guys. Thank you guys for being here. And thank y'all. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. I'm just doing a solo show tomorrow night. It's just me and you guys. So come up with some questions and we will spend some time together tomorrow night. And I don't know, we'll just talk about all kinds of things. Any questions you guys have for me, we'll talk about them. So I will see you guys tomorrow night, 8:00. And please do not forget, what do we always say? Make sure you spread love and kindness wherever you go.